Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay France and Hearts of Iron 4, number 15. We left off having declared war on the Allies. We're going to go ahead and just split up all of our forces into just a large number of smaller groups of forces so that we can basically just deal with all of the fronts that we have to right now, more or less all simultaneously. Now, it's really going to mean dealing with everything in Europe, and then dealing with everything outside of it. We're still doing the whole center first and then the periphery plan, although now it's kind of moving further out into the periphery, since all of continental Europe in the middle bit is ours, sans Spain and Portugal. We're probably not even going to attack the Portuguese simply because we have to deal with a lot, and their nominal neutrality is worth enough for now. We have done some decent damage to the Allied armies. Hopefully we can just destroy a good portion of them while they're over here in Russia. And yeah, that's basically the primary hope. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of just reorganization, dealing with all of the flare-ups wherever they occur. Our manpower is getting a little bit worryingly low, and that is not ideal for obvious reasons. So we do still have quite a few changes we can make before we actually truly run out of manpower for real and for good and forever. So hopefully we can just avoid that for as long as possible. We should also probably slow down, if not stop, production of new military units. I haven't done that yet by the recording of this episode and this whole portion, so that's not something you're going to see in this video, but it is a good idea for the future. We are, meanwhile, just moving all of our forces through the Spanish possessions, just trying to take them all back. We're also trying to cut off all of these forces that the Finns basically just sent into our territory to reinforce the Russian Federation. And that's a bunch of Belgians and just various other units. Hopefully we can trap and destroy them all. And all of these weird little tentacles of Allied control we have to just sort of swoop in and destroy and really just see where that takes us. Turkey is at war with us, notably, so we can't really go into that area. Up in the north again, doing fairly well. Up in Spain, just commanding our units to go seize the territories that just kind of aren't technically under our control. And hopefully we'll be able to achieve that fairly quickly. Our casus belli is ready against the Swedes, so we can declare war on them pretty soon. We do just have to micromanage basically everything right now. And there we go, we declare war on Sweden to conquer them. Luckily they moved all of their forces away from our border, so that's pretty cool for us. And we send 32 divisions, so we're probably going to just overwhelm them rapidly. Meanwhile, the Finnish invasion is being more or less defeated pretty rapidly. There are a bunch of our infantry units just kind of faffing about, not really doing anything helpful. And yeah, so it was a very good call to switch from infantry and whatnot into just mechanized, simply because it's quicker, and in all of the battles that we're going to be fighting in the near future, we really don't need to do anything other than just go as quickly as possible through as much territory as possible, hopefully destroying all of the regimes in our way. And yeah, then just sort of occupying them, hoping for the best. We're probably going to start shifting our occupation policies to gentlest, just in the hopes, the vague and maybe ethereal hopes, that by being gentle with these people, they will contribute enough manpower that we won't just break apart as a country under the strain of fighting the entire rest of the world, which admittedly is becoming a worryingly likely thing to occur. We are also switching out a lot of production to Fighter 3s. Hopefully we can produce at least a respectable number of them despite our tremendous trade deficits and, well, just resource deficits, honestly. So that's going to be an important thing to shoot for. We're going to really just hope for the best on that and see what ends up happening. Our forces do end up charging up through Sweden fairly successfully. Over in Spain, there's just a few portions of territory left to take. We just send shift orders giving our units commands to basically just vaguely charge over across to what remains of British-controlled Spain. Yeah, so that's basically the thing, is just the longer we can go between focusing back on fronts, the better. We're not really fighting any particularly difficult fights. It's just a matter of getting enough troops to the various locations to just kind of vaguely push our enemies further away from the metropole of France. And honestly, that's very likely going to be just the continuation of this campaign, more or less to the end. It's just going to be a question of, are we going to push the Allies out of all of the bits where they exist before we run out of French people to push them with? I can't really answer that question just now. Hopefully we will be able to get some allied forces from all of the occupied territories, treat them, gently, and hopefully they will join our ranks and fight along us instead of against us. Conveniently enough, I'm re-listening to the Revolutions podcast on the French Revolution, and they had an interesting bit where they would try to draft people from occupied sister republics, which kind of just ended up launching revolts. We don't really have to deal with that sort of mechanic in this game, so hopefully we can get decent numbers of troops from all these territories. We also do plan a naval invasion up into Scotland. Hopefully that will work decently well. There's no way we're taking control over the English Channel region, but we might be able to take control over the various peripheral areas. And basically the concept of that is, if we're able to land on the UK and actually take it, then we're golden. We basically win. If we can't, then we're going to have to fight a brutal series of land conflicts all the way across the peripheral bits of the rest of the world until we get to Southeast Asia and take over their rubber manufacturing territories by ourselves. And that's going to be a pretty brutal slog. So hopefully we can invade the UK. Worryingly, though, we sent two mechanized and one armored units over to North Africa to reinforce, and only one of them appears to have made it. Over in the Soviet Union, though, we're doing okay. Scandinavia is basically just collapsing. It's kind of bogging down a little bit, which is honestly going to be a pretty large concern for all of the peripheral actions. Finland, thankfully, does capitulate, which is great news. It lets us push our forces further away, or at least further away from our center. And now it's just Norway and Sweden. Sweden has lost most of its victory points. We're just shoveling our forces into it and really hoping for the best, kind of getting some caught off, which is really not something we can afford to keep doing as time goes on. Our units are going to be increasingly precious as our manpower reserves lower. I'm not going to take any more drastic manpower laws until we get fairly close to 0%, since we are already at a fairly decent thing. I think we're at all adults serve, which may actually be the second to last manpower law, which does make our concern of losing everything a pretty real concern, honestly. We do go ahead and cancel that naval invasion. We're going to bank all of our hopes on the ability to get over into Scotland from Denmark. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that. Meanwhile, our forces are just still carving their paths throughout Sweden, which is just rather difficult to seize control over simply because they just refuse to surrender. Over in all of these Russian territories, the battle is kind of not going poorly. And yeah, we're really at a point where the main thing is just not to lose units. Not to lose units, keep vaguely pressing the enemy backwards, try to trap, encircle, and destroy them whenever possible. If we're lucky, occasionally a state or two is going to capitulate, basically just moving the theater of war significantly forward in a generally positive direction for us. We still haven't even begun to deal with Anatolian Turkey, and we're probably not going to deal with that this episode. We are managing to hopefully destroy Sweden, Norway, and just the rest of those areas in this one, but it all remains to be seen. I don't really believe we're going to have to worry too much about resistance in the Scandinavian theater anymore. The biggest threat is really that we won't be able to take over Great Britain, and we'll just have to leave those islands menacingly off our coast under hostile control. However, we do have a naval invasion being planned right now, so hopefully that won't be the reality we face. And alright, there we go. With that all set up, we have our massive submarine navies all just engaging the British. We can also go ahead and start setting up our air forces to just try to deal with whatever hostile forces are present in the area. And the goal of this operation is to just break through. If we can just break through then we can topple the United Kingdom, get all of their forces off of all of the front lines, and just deal with the shattered remains of what allied states are left, which admittedly does include the United States, which is a kind of ridiculous powerhouse. But other than that, it's just a bunch of backwaters and the rest of the British Commonwealth, which are, you know, very just tangentially related to our current conflict. And we would be able to then focus on the peripheries fairly easily. Sweden did manage to go ahead and capitulate, which is fantastic news. All that's left is to take over Norway, and they don't appear to have very much resistance now that the Swedish military is no longer present. And we are shipping our forces over in the hope that they will be able to make it to Scotland, and it appears as though they are being intercepted, which is far less than ideal. Meanwhile, though, we are taking over Norway very somewhat successfully, driving forward, hoping for the best. It looks as though our transports are just not doing very well at all, and quite potentially going to all die out in the North Sea, so that's less than ideal. Meanwhile, though, the invasion of Norway is going well, so that's nice. It looks as though the Turks were trying to take over Istanbul again. We're still just trying to get Norway to capitulate, despite the fact that they don't really have anything left, which is a little frustrating, but hopefully not so bad. And yeah, our transports appear to have all sank, so we're just going to get the remainder of our navies and try to get them out of there. Just conserve their strength for later. Alright, and with the failure of that naval invasion, it basically means, well, thankfully Norway capitulated, it basically means that we're going to have to make this a long, brutal slog against the Allies. We won't win until we push them out of Eurasia, and potentially also Africa, although that takes slightly less priority. And we won't be able to win this war until we are a world state. And that is basically the path we're going to have to take. You'll notice that our casualties have leapt up considerably since last time. Luckily, so have the Allied casualties. You don't really see very many of them because I hadn't actually adjusted the kill-death ratio thing previously, but I'm going to keep that up from now on. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow as the war continues.